Welcome back, everyone, to your favorite St. Louis sports podcast, The Lounatics. This is take 2 of our attempt at starting this episode, as I was staring at my phone the first time when John hit record, and I didn't respond in an appropriate manner. So taking it a second stab here at getting this episode rolling. We're going to do a special fun thing. We're doing our city preview for St. Louis City SC, which we are both very excited about this season. If you guys hadn't ever picked up on our excitement around our soccer team, now's your chance to finally jump in on the fun and see why I have such a man crush on Celio Pompeu. John, I heard you cracking things open. What are you drinking tonight?
Well, I figure, you might as well go with the best option, Parker Pilsner, R.I.P. Parker, R.I.P. Timmy P. Rebranded now as City Pilsner, of course. So it has not died, thankfully, considering it is like my favorite Pilsner I've ever had.
It's a solid beer.
Yeah, solid beer.
Yeah, I have an empty can, and I've saved it, and I like one of those like nostalgia things, but I don't really know what I'm ever going to do with it. So
when we are finishing our basement later this year, and I have 6 more after this one, and I'm saving one of them to put on somewhere in the bar on display.
Rightfully so.
Because, I mean, he scored the first goal, City's history. He scored the first playoff goal, City's history. Is the all-time leading scorer for Seattle against St. Louis City. So why not? You have to immortalize a man like that. Yeah,
no, he's a good guy. And honestly, Parker was a good dude. He was a good player for us. The opportunity last season to acquire some of the pieces we acquired, such as Kessler, just hard to pass those kind of things up. So,
well, and not just that, but I mean, Parker was making roughly $1 million, right? But Houston was paying for half of it, and he obviously values himself at that price, but City obviously valued him at half that price because that's what City was paying him. And, it's obvious why they were not able to come to an agreement. I am going to be, as soon as MLSPA releases those salary numbers, that's the first name I'm looking up. I want to know how much he's making at Red Bull this year, because I'm really curious in that, what he was able to get from them. So,
yeah, I also find it intriguing that that's where he ended up again, right? He ended up back at Red Bull.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I think, and we've talked about this a lot, in that his game was so based on his physical ability, which is good for a pressing team as long as your physical ability's there. But, at what point is he going to see that decline? Because you and I talked about, like, we didn't like the idea of re-signing him at his current number. Right? If we thought you and I both said it last season, right? If we resign him, it needs to be at a discounted number. And if we're not going to discount that price or that number, then it doesn't make sense for City to do so. So I think it'll be interesting to kind of play it by ear and see what happens. And I'd be really intrigued to see what his salary number is.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to see what Celio's number is. I don't know. I didn't look at the end of last season if they released his new number yet, or if he was, because he was still under that old one. So
it's in the fall release it has him. He's at approximately 200,000.
Okay.
And he was making like 70,000. Yeah,
65 or something stupid. Yeah, league minimum.
In fact, I'll pull it up right now for you while you're talking about something else.
Yeah, no, you're fine. So we've kind of finished up. We have finished up our preseason here for St. Louis City. They're still out finishing things up in California to avoid the wonderful weather we're having here in St. Louis, which, is beautiful outside if you love it, absolutely frigid and snow covered. So I think that was the right call by the team. I think it was exciting for the event Sunday that they flew in those guys, a bunch of the players to come in and answer some questions and do some things. But I also wonder, was it really the right call to fly these guys back? And granted, they probably chartered a plane, flew in, to Chesterfield, drove across the road, did the thing, hopped back on the plane and flew back. But again, it goes back to his, 7 or 8 hours on a plane, 6 hours, whatever it ends up being. Really the best thing for those guys, a week before game time and, et cetera, on their potential rest day, right? I think they were probably not going as hard on Sunday as probably they did some of the other days if coach and company were in St. Louis. I don't know. Intriguing thoughts though, right? Several question marks coming out of the preseason. Some of them are slowly getting answered. Several of them are still not answered. And you and I were kind of discussing this before we started recording, just trying to feel each other out. If, I was trying to feel you out if you had gotten more info on any of them or not. So several notable players that, at least a couple notable players that we didn't see a lot of or any of in the preseason, who are big players for us, guys who play a lot of medics, Chris Durkin and Seti Choo-Choo, also known as Cedric Toyshirt. So got some clarity on Cedric, on Seti Choo-Choo, as far as where he's at, what he was doing. John confirmed that via sources online that he was off getting paperwork for his green card and should be back with the team today. My biggest question mark is, when will he be game fit?
I mean, I think you're really overselling what I did. I, saw tweets from other people who are actually connected, specifically Tom Timmerman, and listen, well, did he tweet about it? I don't know. He said it on the STL Soccer Talk podcast, and then there were a lot of tweets quoting him from it. So I don't want to overstate what we do and give credit where we should on that. I do think he is. I mean, because he had that groin injury before he left, right? And correct. So with that groin injury, that might be the issue.
The lower body injury, for hockey fans.
Yes. So because of that, we don't know if that persisted into him being in Germany or if he's better. I do suspect, because their initial reporting basically said that they were being cautious with him. I do suspect he will probably be on the bench on Saturday for the first game. I don't anticipate him starting, but I do think he could probably be like a 75, maybe even 80-minute sub. Just kind of see where he's at. Maybe even earlier, but that's where I'm leaning for him probably.
Again, that opens up some starting minutes for some other players and be intriguing to see who they put there. Chris Durkin is the more concerning one for me. Just because of everything he does, right? He's kind of the engine that makes our team run from the back. As much as people, I know we've had some people have mixed feelings about Durkin, but the guy is an absolute workhorse. And
I think he's going to feast this year. I honestly think he's going to have a fantastic year because he is, if you look at how the preseason games went, you would imagine that Watts was playing in Durkin's role. And Watts had a lot of freedom and mobility in Olaf's system to be a pressing trigger. And that kept Leuven deeper more, which we can talk more about if that's a good or a bad thing. I think it's a good thing for us with our new upgrades in the summer. But I think if you have Leuven staying home a bit more and being more distributive to our attacking midfield, and you let Durkin kind of just go do the thing Durkin does best, because, the best and worst part of Durkin's game is the fact that he covers so much ground and he's everywhere. Because when he goes, he's obviously leaving space behind. So if you can provide some more of that cover for him and just put him in the position to do the one thing he does exceptionally well, I think that can work out really, really well for City this year.
Again, obviously it's when do you see him and is he going to, when do we actually get to see that? And the other question I've thought about and that I've kind of had in the back of my mind, because I had similar thoughts of, if that's where he's going to be playing with the freedom Watts had, is Leuven staying home because it's Watts and not Durkin, right? Is he playing more of, defensively than maybe he would if Durkin were on the field?
It could be. Absolutely could be.
I think it opens up the door for those deep slicing and kind of, line breaking passes that Leuven likes to make, which I enjoy, right? He sees the field better from back there. I think you brought it up multiple times last season that's one of the things when he's at his best is kind of sitting back a little bit, but playing those line breaking passes to the guys running onto him. And if you get that out of him by him sitting a little deeper, I mean, that's a positive and a net win there. But I also really enjoyed last year when he played further up the pitch once we had Toyshirt and Hartle, how well the three of them played off each other and how much more confident and comfortable he looked pressing forward and kind of playing more in that offensive zone.
Yeah, and if I remember right from year one, he said that his most natural position was defensive midfield, was playing as a 6. And we've never really used him as a 6, a few times maybe, but mostly as an 8, more box to box. And I do wonder if in Olaf's system, if it doesn't become, where they're both playing more as like maybe more as like a true double pivot than what we've seen in the past. You and I have talked a lot about this too, is that it wasn't really a double pivot because it was always, it always pivoted the same way, right? It was never the opposite. And it
was a single pivot, by which I mean it didn't pivot.
Yeah, it did not pivot. It was a single pivot every time. And so I do think that opens that up. Several times in preseason, we saw Leuven drop deep, like almost in line with the center backs deep. Some of those times we saw Nielsen go on overlapping runs into the box, which was definitely something. I don't know if that's like a thing that we're going to actually see in games, or if that's Olaf just fucking with the rest of MLS saying, look, we're going to take our, our 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" center backs and tell them to just scream into the box late and look for headers.
Or, I mean, in Nielsen's case, bicycle kicks. I mean, it's more of a tricycle kick if you actually look at it, but,
Hey, I don't know, man. A guy with that kind of injury history shouldn't be attempting any type of cycle kicks.
Honest to God, when he scored that goal last year, that was my first thought was, oh my God, please don't get hurt on this.
Well, because right after that, remember they came out and they said that he had a broken rib. And I was like, they're not saying when it happened. Eventually they said it happened in practice. And I'm like, no, he definitely did that doing the bicycle kick. I cannot be convinced otherwise. That is the only way that happened. It has to be.
Right.
Also injured, of course, Jay Reed, out for a couple months to start the season. And then also JGR, we have not seen him in any preseason games. Now it's possible that Durkin played in the last game against San Jose, or that JGR did. We've not been given exact timelines. We have no idea if it was a closed door friendly, but I don't have high hopes. But that does make defensive midfield a little bit thin for us. I'm clearly, I don't think Perez got into a game again, like the last 2 or 3 Coachella games. He got in the first one, I think, and I don't think he got in another one. So I don't think they see him there. They haven't announced that they've signed Alfredo Morales, who was coming into that position and was a trialist with us. So I guess he's out. So I don't know. But that is my one real concern. I do think Valum could play there in a pinch. So it's possible, say Watts goes down late in the game and you still have Valum out there. You could bring Celio in, move Valum over to defensive midfield and let Celio play left wing. But still really thin.
Yeah, I think with Leuven being able to play deeper, I wonder if we did, at least to start the season, we do see that, see him playing quite a bit deeper there. Yeah. I think that's my most likely situation is him. We've seen a good bit of Ostrak in preseason, enough to know that he's game-ish fit. He's definitely not going to be.
He can't start. He can play.
No. And so he gives you a potential sub option in the midfield. I could also wonder if Toyshirt's groin is doing better, if they kind of, played Leuven more as a true six and then have Ostrak and Toyshirt kind of split
Yeah,
the halves kind of situation
maybe.
where neither one has to go full 90. I just don't know exactly how fit Toyshirt's going to be and if that's
Yeah,
really an option.
right.
I'm going to guess not.
Yeah, maybe not for this week. Maybe in a couple weeks, it's an option. I do think Watts probably was one of our minutes leaders at Coachella, partly because half the team got an illness, is what they called it. But also, like, if you think about the guys that we have as subs through our current lineup, at least, you have to imagine that Watts is probably not one that you want to sub, right? Unless you have to. You probably want fresh attacking legs a lot. Now, granted, if he is your main pressing trigger and he's tiring out, clearly you need to do something about that. But I do wonder if he's one that you would rather stay going 90. But
I feel like, and again, it's hard to tell too, because, you and I could sit here and pick apart how we thought Bradley Carnell was going to utilize his subs, but with this team, this roster, I don't know what Olaf's going to do yet, right? Like, it's hard for me to predict, right? Carnell was not going to sub his defenders unless he had to, and Carnell, I don't think would have ever left Watts out for 90 if he didn't have to, at least unless he was one of the right or left back.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
he never played 90 in midfield that I can remember. It was always as a fullback.
and so, but now we've got a new coach, right? We've got new tendencies we to learn, and subbing tendencies are something to me that don't change much. He might change his scheme and what he's trying to do based on the team we're playing and things. We're going to see some differences, and I think Olaf is going to be much more flexible in that. In fact, he's said as much, that he wants to be, more unpredictable and more willing to adjust and do things a little differently game to game and even half to half, and make adjustments on the fly. I think the thing that tends to, lead into tendencies a lot and kind of getting a feel is definitely going to be the subbing nature of Olaf. And it'll be interesting to see if he subs as much as Hack or as much as Carnell did, or if all of a sudden maybe we're only seeing 2 or 3 subs a game instead of utilizing them all every game.
Yeah, I think learning Olaf's tendencies is going to be huge to start the year. I am really interested in that as well for the subs. Because he's also not MLS experienced, right? So how much does he understand or appreciate the toll that the travel will take? Like, I think MLS teams in general under sub compared to how much travel they have to do. And part of that is because a lot of teams don't have a particularly strong bench. I'm pretty happy with our bench right now. I want to see all of our subs coming into the game, like at least 4. Like, and if you get the last sub in with, at the 85th, 87th minute, sure. Like, I understand why you want to possibly save one just in case, but otherwise, like, use all 4 subs, other than that. While talking about his tendencies, I did want to bring up that we will see, like you mentioned, a lot of different formations. It sounds like the preferred is going to be a 3-5-2, which you and I touched on when he was hired, that he used that a lot in Norway and Sweden. Every preseason game, that's what we saw them using. Maybe that's just to get them comfortable in it. And then, we can always switch back to a 4-2-3-1, which they're already, really comfortable with each other. But yeah, that's another tendency that I think is important to bring up, that we're going to see. That's going to be a new look this year for us.
And if we do that, and I guess this is first thing here, who do you think, or what do you think will be the starting lineup for Saturday? Just a hunch, throwing a stab in the dark. Assuming they go with, I'm going to assume they're going to go with the 3-5, something similar to the 3-5-2,
right,
or in that range.
3 center backs, 5 people somewhere in the midfield, and 2-ish people ahead of them.
Yeah.
So Okay, so the only positions that I'm not confident on are left center back and the second forward. So I'm pretty confident in the rest of these. Who I have slotted in right now, Berkey, obviously. God, how funny would it have been if I had said Bidloot, though? Like,
God, do you know how many people would have just like if the few people that listen to our podcast would have already have unsubscribed?
Right. So Berkey, obviously, I think it's going to be Horn at left center back. He seemed to play there the most in preseason. So that's who I think it's going to be there. Then I think it'll be Nielsen and then Kessler. It would not surprise me if Timo Baumgartel is in for Horn or for Nielsen. I don't think he'll sub in for Kessler. But it would not surprise me if Timo is a starter for one of those two spots, particularly at the left center back spot. Wingbacks, Conrad Vollum and Thomas Totland, written in pen, I think, for both of them.
Sharpie
that, yeah. Leuven and Watts are going to be your midfield base. Your attacking midfield ahead of them is going to be Hartl. Klaus will be one of your starting forwards, and then your second forward's either going to be Betcher or it's going to be Vasilev right now. I think it's going to be Vasilev. Based on what we saw in preseason, Betcher was used more frequently as a sub, while Vasilev was more frequently a starter when he was there. So I think Vasilev ended up with a little bit more minutes. I think Betcher has also shown the ability to come in as a late game sub and impact a game, which is a incredibly valuable ability to have. And by that, I mean he comes in and he scores goals and yeah. And so I think you probably want to start with Klaus and Indy and then bring Betcher on as like a change of pace later in the game. And not even like late in the game, something like 60th minute is what I'm thinking is when you would bring him on. Because that's long enough that he can have an impact, but short enough that he can just be himself and run nonstop.
No, so excuse me. I have my back starting out pretty similar to you. Again, the biggest question I had was, does Timo start, over Nielsen or over Horn or not? I think right now the answer is no. But again, it wouldn't surprise me. And I could also see him being a very quick, easy sub if one of them is starting to get winded. Or vice versa, if one of them's on the bench, one of them being quick to come in. Again, right and left wing backs, written in Sharpie. We know who that's going to be. Unless Totland just is absolutely drained from having his first child, which congrats Tots.
By the way, did you see that picture? You clearly saw the picture. I sent it to Kelsey and I said, that picture perfectly encapsulates the first day of having a newborn, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're like falling asleep, standing up. And then Kelsey's response was that it's not, someone should tell him that it's not even the most tired he's going to be over the next few months.
You're right.
Like, yeah, right. Anyway, please
you
continue.
Just think you're tired. Well, the problem with that is the adrenaline has just worn off.
Yeah.
So you feel that like extra like drain, right? Your adrenaline's gone and you just hit that dip, and that's when they caught the picture of him. So all the dads know what I'm talking about. So anyway, right. So unless he is just toast from that, he's starting.
If he's toast, who starts in his place? Though, like you know who it is,
who it should be, or who it's gonna be,
who it's going to be.
My best guess is is who they're going to slide in there.
I'll come back to that. Please continue.
But anyway, this is where it gets a little fun. So I agree. I think what they've shown us, it's going to be Watson, Leuven, unless for some reason there's something with Durkin that we didn't know and he's ready to go. Whatever. But the attacking midfield, I agree, is going to be Hartl. He's going to be the guy who's kind of facilitating, setting things up, doing the stuff. I think they start Klaus up top, but I don't know if it's going to be ND, and I don't think Betcher's option 2 starting. I think it would be, but the thing that I love and that I miss and I want to see again is I want to see Klaus and Alm again.
Yeah.
The contrast there. And so that's what I I don't know if that's what it's going to be. I think you're right. I think it's going to be Indy,
Right.
but I want to see Klaus and Alm.
Yeah. So we saw play centrally as either an attacking mid, central mid, or as a second striker a little bit this preseason. I know he did it once in the inaugural season in a 4-4-2. I don't remember it happening at all last year. That being said, I'm not against the idea. I just don't know, again, how fit he is, if he's going to be able to. But I think that leads to a very interesting next question. Okay. So we roughly know what our starting 11 is going to look like. You and I are on pretty much the same page on that -2 positions. Yeah. You get to bring 18 guys. So you have 7 on the bench. Okay. You're running 3 center backs. Okay. So Ben Loon is number 12, right? No matter what, Ben Loon's the first guy on the bench.
Unless they put Christian in there for some reason.
Right. If Ben is having a child again and staying in St. Louis instead of traveling. Yeah. So anyway, so Ben Loon, number 12. So then you have 5 more, right? 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 6 more. Okay, so you have 6 more guys. Okay. You're running a 3 center back look. Okay. You don't have Chris Durkin. So you're probably taking 2 center backs, right?
I mean, you're going to have, assuming you and I we have the same 3 center backs, you're going to have Hebert and Timo both on the bench.
Exactly.
So that only leaves you with 4 offensive position players. Now, the beautiful thing about Hebert is, and I assume, and from what I've seen from Baumgartel and Timo in the past, is that he could do it too, is they could both also play the fullback on either side if they needed to.
Exactly.
So they both give you flexibility there. But yeah, no, you only have 4 offensive subs. You and I both know Betcher's going to be one of them.
Yeah, Betcher. Okay.
Alm has to be one.
Right.
Toyshirt.
And then Toyshirt.
If he's healthy.
If he's healthy.
Then you have to decide between Ostrak and Celio.
And Indy.
Well, so
you have
Alm
Indy
is
starting.
one. Yeah, so Alm Indy, right, is one.
Yeah.
So you have Alm Indy, Betcher.
So you have to choose between Celio and Ostrak. And I don't think you want to make that choice. So I have a counter argument. Okay. You start off in your 3-5-2. If one of your center backs goes down, you're switching to a 4-4-2 of some sort, or 4-2-3-1. And then you're bringing an extra attacking player as a sub.
Yeah. In which case you keep Timo, you'd probably take Hebert off the bench. Yeah. And you're going to keep Ostrak and Celio.
Yeah. Your one problem, before I let you go to your thought, though, is if you take Timo and leave Hebert off, you do not have a backup fullback.
I think Timo could play fullback, though.
I mean, I think he probably could.
And you've got Totland can play fullback on one side.
I think he could probably play on both. I'd play him on both.
Either side, yeah. I mean, Totland can play, but
he can run.
I just meant, he can play. If he's on the right, he's playing the right. Valum could play the left, but also Horn has shown us that he can play left back as well, which gives you additional flexibility, assuming he's not the one that goes down. Right.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if Horn goes down, right? Because like if Totland goes down and you're in your 3-5-2, you just put someone else at right wing back. If Horn goes down, like, you possibly have a decision to make on if you bring in Timo, which you probably would in that situation. But then, like, if you have a second one go down, say Nielsen goes down right after, right? At that point, you're probably switching to a 4-4-2, and you're asking, I kind of think probably Valum to play left back at that point.
Yeah.
You're just asking him to stay home a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's the same thing. It's in Totland, right? It's just understanding that. You also have smart players and players like Leuven who know how to adjust their game to potentially stay a little deeper and help support there as well. So I think it's also, game depends on how the game's flowing as well.
True.
I like where you went there. I still wonder, right, as we're running through all these names and all these players, is Is Watts going to be the guy? I like Watts. I think Watts is a good player. I think he's done really well
Who
for our
else are you going to
team.
start there? Oh, because Celio is not 90
No,
fit. He's
Celio
not
can't.
starting fit.
Celio and Ostrak, neither one are ready to start.
Right. Because
And so
if
it's
they were
Alm and Indy.
right, if they were, and I did not, Indy will play the 6 if we ask him to. And honestly, in Olaf's system, it may not be the worst position for him because he can just run, right? He can
I'm
be a
thinking
little
if you put Leuven and Indy as a double pivot, if they're truly playing a true double pivot,
right. That would work.
and allow Indy to run, and then again that opens up the up top for Alm. To be. I don't know.
I mean, you
I
could
think
also
Watts is the one that makes sense, but
you could also make the case that Vala maybe in a stopgap plays again central midfield, and you put Indy as left wing back. And now Indy's never played left wing back, except for the one time we did it in the inaugural season, kind of as a surprise to everyone. But that might be an option. And that's just until Celio, like you get to a minute where you can bring Celio in, right? For whatever you're wanting to do with him. But I do think it's going to be Watts. And you and I are going probably way too deep into the weeds of, well, what happens if this guy now gets hurt on Saturday? What are we going to do?
You and I, we've been sitting here all off season thinking through all of this through, right?
Right.
And it's like, all right, we're doing our city season preview. Are you ready to like get into this, right? Because I mean, we're both just giddy about the season. I mean, you know, your first season as a season ticket holder, you know, just getting after it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be an exciting season. But you and I both have been waiting and chomping at the bit to start talking city soccer again, especially after the lackluster season that the Blues have been having. It's just kind of made for a long winter.
It has been a long winter. Well, let me ask you this then. Let me move us along because I think we've talked personnel quite a bit. We've not actually talked anything about performance or goals or anything like that. So what do you think? So City this year is going to play in MLS. Okay. They're going to play in US Open Cup. They will not play in any other tournaments, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you think are the keys to them being successful this year? Now I'm not asking you to name what a successful year looks like. I'm asking what will enable them to be successful.
I think having consistent play, and it's going to sound stupid, but in kind of two phases. Well, one's consistent play, one's creative play. Consistent play along the back line. Right. Our backline got torched way too often last season, with silly, just not understanding spacing type situations, and maybe not even not understanding, just getting caught off guard. It's not that they don't understand, but you know, getting caught off guard. Those situations destroyed us. So understanding those moments and being ready for them. And then the other big thing that is going to determine whether or not we're successful is how creative can we be in the attacking third. Because up until the last chunk of last year, we had zero creativity unless one or two people had the ball. And then when those people got hurt, we lost that creativity again. Looking at you know, talking obviously Celio Pompeu was the big one, right? He was the most creative guy, and we had losing him set us back a lot until Hartel and Toy Shirt came along and kind of helped spark things again. So
and those two guys are just a different creativity than Celio. That's one of why I can't really wait to see him on the field with them, because Celio's a dribbly guy. He'll make the pass, but he's a dribbly guy. Whereas I feel like Toy Shirt and Hartle are like, I think Toy Shirt's a bit more in between. But when I look at Hartle, I think he's more of a make the pass guy. Mm-hmm. He will dribble at you, but he's also going to look for that one pass that he needs to unlock.
Yeah. Hartel for me is the beat a guy and get rid of it. He doesn't keep going, right? Toy Shirt, if he thinks he can beat two or three guys, he's going to beat the two or three guys when he can. He definitely leans towards the beat a guy and pass as well. But Celio is, I'm going to go right around you, and then when I have the game-changing pass open, that's when I will pass it.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to pull up. It got me actually. Yeah, Marcel Hartle. I'm looking at it on FOTMA, but it's probably pulling from like FBref or something like that. He's actually in the 88th percentile for attacking midfielders on chances created, which is nice. He's also 94th percentile for goals. That's a good thing you want out of your attacking midfielder, is someone who can attack.
Yes. Well, and I think it's the composure from Toyshirt and Hartle both in the box, right? They're not always going to hit just rockets of shots or anything else, right? But it's just the calm, cool collectedness. I'm going to put this in the corner. I'm going to put this on goal, and I'm going to move on.
Yeah.
And I think we have a few players, Klaus, who could really do from like just
calming down,
watching that and just taking a breath and just not getting so excited when they get in the box. Like as a striker, you shouldn't get excited in the box in that way, right? You should be excited knowing you're going to score, but you shouldn't be so excited you can't put the ball on frame as frequently as Klaus did last year.
Yeah. So I 100% agree with both of what you said, because, City got beat kind of two ways. One, it was a lack of focus in defensive transition a lot of times, or on set pieces, just really defensive focus in general. But also they really struggled when they were forced to contain the ball, possess the ball, and then, try to unlock a low block. So I do think both of those things are huge keys to us this year. The other thing that I want to bring up that I think is going to be a really big driver of how this season goes is Klaus's finishing ability. You and I talked about it over the winter. People right now, one of the things Klaus does really, really well is his off-ball movement. He does really well at pulling defenders out of position and freeing up other players. But if he is not a threat on goal, they're going to just start ignoring that. And when that happens, I'm worried that we will struggle. So I do think Klaus, getting back to 2023 Klaus, where he was always a threat to score, is going to be a huge part of this game, because we need our opposing back lines to respect Klaus and what he can do, so that way we can free up everyone else to have moments in space where they can take those good shots. Plus, if Klaus is scoring goals, the team is scoring goals, and we're, probably winning.
I agree. I think I didn't, the more I think about it, obviously I just referenced it, right? I felt like if you were in these sections behind the goal, it was the most dangerous place to be on the field if Klaus was attacking that goal. And I'm sure I'm blowing it out of proportion some, but I mean, You're not. It was painful to watch at times last year, right? It was just Klaus got the ball, and early in the season, you're like, oh, he's going to put this in the net every time, right? That's immediately where your mind goes. And about partway through the season, you started to think Klaus gets the ball, and you're like, oh, dear God, please find a pass. And you don't want to be saying that about your striker when your striker gets the ball is, oh, dear God, please find a pass, right?
Yeah.
But that's just kind of where we landed. And if we can get back to that, if we can get back to him putting balls on frame and shots on frame, then I think that's obviously going to be good for the team. But for a lot of different reasons. And I also wonder how short his leash will be this year. Yeah. If he continues to struggle and he's not creating opportunities because his off-ball movement isn't drawing attention, and the other things he does aren't working because he's not scoring goals, how long before they bring in Betcher to be the starter?
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. Okay. 2023, Klaus had 12 goal contributions, 10 goals, 2 assists. 2024, Klaus had 5 goals, 2 assists. So basically half. Which season do you think he had more minutes in?
Season 2.
Season 2. He had 1,900 minutes in season 2.
He went down in July, didn't come back till like late August, early September in season 1.
It was earlier than that, probably. But what I'm getting at is, he played 600 more minutes season 2 and had half. So you're not overstating that, right? He played a lot more, 50% more, and literally had half the contribution that he had the year before from a statistical standpoint. So the next thing, though, that I wanted to ask you is, what should the team goals look like, and what do you think a good season looks like, and what do you think a bad season looks like?
I mean, team goal wise, right? You should strive to win a dozen of your home games, right?
Yeah.
You have to win home games in this league, or you're toast. So your goal should be minimum. You should be looking to win a dozen home games, and then at which point, if you split on the road, right, and you say you go, 8-1, right, points wise, you're in decent shape, right? Like you're
I mean,
looking.
if you win 12 home games and 8 road games, you have 60 points, and you're talking about being top of your conference at that
Yeah.
point, for sure.
But that should be your goal, is to win a dozen home games. You should look to at least split your road games. So even if it's a 4-4, and you've got that, and you're drawing 9 or whatever that is,
Mhm.
right? You should look for a 500 split on the road, but you have to
Yeah.
dominate at home
Yeah.
in those instances. So that's what good and what the team goals should look like. And then realistically, a good season, I put them in the 48 to 55 point range, 45 to 55 points, and fighting for a top 4 seed is
Okay.
realistic for a good season. I think a bad season, you miss the playoffs again. I think
Yeah.
if you're in, you're doing okay. Maybe not good, but not terrible. But if you miss the playoffs second year in a row, especially after the changes that were made, I think that all of a sudden begins to start the concern for what's next. What do you have to do from here, right? Now all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're talking about where the Blues are, right? Where it's, what do you do? Do you start trading off pieces? Do you start making changes? Now, again, not quite there yet, I don't think, as far as major pieces go, but I mean, they made some solid investments in people like Toyshirt and Hartel.
Yeah.
Bringing in people like Timo and things. And it's, at what point, what else do we need to do? And I know the league is getting much more competitive. It's the Messi effect. Teams are spending more money, and you're seeing bigger, higher profile players come. It's, at what point do you, as a team, as a club, as an organization, decide that, okay, are the players we have and the system we have, is that good enough? Or are we going to have to sign that huge free agent from somewhere,
Yeah.
or big transfer fee? And, I just don't feel like our club in its infancy and as young as it is in a place where they need to be thinking like that. My hope is
Yeah.
that we can continue to win with the players we have and the system we have. And I felt like we've spent wisely up to this point. And so I would hope that that would continue.
Yeah. Lutz is the king of free transfers. That's for sure. Considering, think about it though. Berkey was a free transfer, right? Toysher was a free transfer. Hartle was a free transfer, right? That's two of your DPs right there, and one of your TAM players, just like off the top of my head, that I know were free transfers. And I know there was more, but like those are the 3 big ones that stand out. Well, for reference, last year, the 8th and 9th seeds tied on 47 points in the West. Part of that is because San Jose was fucking trash last year. They had 21 points. Like, I'm not saying anything that no one disagrees with.
No,
I need to.
I'm laughing because I get it, but
Yeah. In fact, that might be the record for like fewest points. I wanted to take a look at that to see how they decided. I don't think San Jose is definitely not going to be that bad. I don't think San Diego is going to be that bad. So there are going to be some points pulled out of the mid-table. I think 45 to 50 is probably a decent season. I think 50 to 55 is probably a good season. Anything better than 55 is a pretty good season. Let me ask you this. So we're competing in the Open Cup. If they win the U.S. Open Cup and miss the playoffs, a la essentially Sporting Kansas City, who did not win the Open Cup, but they lost to LA, who also earned a spot to Champions League for something else that they did. So that's why SKC is in CONCACAF Champions Cup, is because they got second in the Open Cup. But if they win Open Cup and fail to make the playoffs, is that a good season? Because you got a trophy.
I would call it a consolation prize. I think it's, and again, the Open Cup is huge for me. Like, I love the idea of winning the Open Cup. I think if you win the Open Cup but fail to make the playoffs, you're still concerned about the depth and your ability to compete at the CONCACAF Champions Cup and things moving forward, right? Open Cup's great, especially the way MLS has changed things and limited the teams that get to compete. It's not the same level of competition necessarily, right? It doesn't mean quite as much, right? You're not going through the entire MLS all of an MLS to get there, right? It's hit and miss on which teams are participating. I think, again, it's a good consolation prize. I think it's a great way to get into those other competitions, those other tournaments, and opening those doors. It, however, does not, I mean, like, as much as we want to complain about Leagues Cup being a, cash grab, whatever, you want to be in Leagues Cup, you want to be in Champions Cup, you want to be in all those competitions realistically, especially as a fan. But it's the easiest way to gauge where you are as a team, right? There's nothing better than watching your team go up against Club America and figure out, how do we hold weight, right? Especially in where we are in the world. And so not being able to see that kind of sucks a little bit, right? This year, right? We're not going to get our annual Club America game.
I know. I was going to say that too. Yeah. For the first time ever in our existence, we will not play Club America.
And it kind of sucks. And so, that was the one thing that I enjoyed out of Champions Cup, was it was a great litmus test to see where we were. And I can tell you,
Leagues Cup.
It was hard.
You said Champions Cup, but you meant Leagues Cup. Sorry.
Leagues Cup, sorry. Yeah, Leagues Cup is a good litmus test as where you are as a team. And I think in year one, we kind of mailed it in because we were trying to make a push for the playoffs a little bit and trying to rest people up. But you could also tell our team was not truly ready to compete at that level, which was kind of foreshadowing for what we got in the playoffs. When teams could all of a sudden, Kansas City essentially was, here's the ball, you beat us,
Right.
and then waited for their opportunities, and we weren't ready for that.
Also, here's Willie Agata going top bends from 30 yards out.
Yeah, right. But did not have that on my bingo card in the freezing, snowy, ice rain, whatever the hell it was that we were standing out in. God, were your seats covered for that game?
Yeah, they were covered.
Oh, I hate you.
It did not make it more enjoyable.
We were 5 rows back, and we were getting just, it was weather-wise miserable. I will say, coolest intro light show ever, though, with the way the rain and stuff was falling.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
Yeah.
The game did not go the way I wanted, but I digress from my point here, which is, you want to play in those tournaments, you want to do the things. I think it's a consolation prize, and it makes you feel, okay, cool, we've got some additional opportunities next year. But I wouldn't necessarily consider it a good season, just from the fact that that there's a lot of holes and things you need to fill for you to actually compete in those tournaments the following year.
Right. I wouldn't describe it as a consolation prize, but if we missed the playoffs and won the Open Cup, I would find it difficult to rectify those things, because not all of MLS competes in the Open Cup. And so it's kind of like, okay, yeah, we won the tournament. Only roughly half the league is in the tournament. I know USL and all that are in, but we also can be clear that an MLS team is going to win this. It would be a major upset if a USL team won the tournament. And so,
don't get me wrong, if City doesn't win, I want a USL team to win.
Well, sure, but absolutely. Absolutely you do.
Let's also be clear on that.
Yeah, right. But like you said, I want us to face the best, and if we do, if we win the Open Cup and none of the other MLS teams take it seriously, and we miss the MLS playoffs, that's going to be a very awkward feeling. Yeah, I don't I don't know how I feel about that. I think one of the goals for this team this year should be to win the Open Cup. It should be to win the Open Cup and make the playoffs and see what you can do in the playoffs. Those are the two goals that I would love to see this year.
If we do both of those things, I think it's a fantastic season.
Fantastic season. Absolutely. Yeah. 100% agree. Now, I'm gonna give you the choice, okay? Do you want to go with predictions on how they will do, or do you want to go with hot takes? Or we can do those two things together, actually. Let's do that.
Let's do it together.
Okay. So I did a poll on Twitter, on X. Excuse me. I can't.
God,
I
I
can't
need to get on
insult
X
Daddy
more
Elon.
so I can tell you what this is about to be.
I can't upset Daddy Elon. There was a poll conducted by me on Twitter asking, where will City finish the 2025 season? And here are the options, okay? 1 to 2 was an option in the West, not in the total shield, in the West. 3 through 6, so upper mid-table, basically. 7 through 9, so playoff team that, basically the worst playoff teams, or outside of the playoffs. Those are the 4 options I did. Where do you think City will finish? And then I'll tell you what the poll said.
3 to 6.
That's what the overwhelming result of the polls found too. It was like 80%.
You're also
answered that.
City fans, so you expect them to be a little higher on them. But
yeah, but I mean, 10% did say 1 or 2, and I was like, okay, guys, calm it down. There's at least 4 teams that I think are solidly better than City this year, and it's going to take some luck from City to finish ahead of them.
Which 4 though?
Seattle, LAFC, LA Galaxy, provided their injuries work themselves out, in Minnesota.
I was like, I have LAFC and Seattle clearly better. I have LA Galaxy pending the injury situation. What happens now? I think when healthy, a better team for sure.
A better team, yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Can't play well against us, but a better team.
I think they're a better team, but yeah, with their injury situations after trading Jovic away.
Huge out for possibly the year. Painsel's going to be out for the first 4 to 6 games of the season. And Marco Reus is like 80. So,
for me, I think they're definitely catchable in the West, and I think Minnesota's catchable, and I don't necessarily think that they are. I don't think where LA Galaxy stands or where they're going to finish the season where Minnesota is, they're going to necessarily be clear cut better than City. But I think they're definitely going to be fighting for that 3, 4, 5 seed, kind of in that same range that I think we should be fighting for. LAFC and Seattle to me are the clear and away best rosters in the West.
I would agree with that. I do think that's probably the top 2 seeds in the West. If Paintsel comes back in 4 games and Royce stays healthy and they get Pooj back, say with 6 games to spare, right, is when he makes his debut, that team could easily be 3rd. And I am really high on Minnesota. I will say that I am terrified of that team, and not just because they put 6 up against lowercase Kansas in preseason, but they ended really, really well. They seem to, everyone seems to understand their role, what they need to be doing at all times. Creative team, also has some speed on it. Solid defensively. That is a team that worries me. But a couple injuries here, a couple injuries there. LAFC and Seattle have tons of games this year. There's an opening. If one of those 4 teams slips, right, there's an opening for someone else to finish top 4. And I think that could be us. I do think the peak for City is the 4th seed. I don't think they can finish above 4.
I had them, the absolute peak for me was 3, because I feel like there's no way they're going to beat past LAFC or Seattle unless one of them stumbles. And if one of them stumbles, another team I felt like is going to catch the break of that, whether it be, Galaxy or somebody. So I felt like 3 was the top. I felt like 4, 5, 6 was more realistic as to where I think they'll actually finish.
And for reference too, the 4th seed last year was Seattle with 57 points. So the 3 seed was 59. So you probably need 60 most years to be a top 3 seed, I think. Not every year is going to be 2023 where we win the West with 56 points. But I do, looking at those teams, thinking about the math on the table, 4 seems to be the peak. I do think 6 is my lower end of like reasonable expectation. I think I would be disappointed with a 7, 8, 9 finish. Like, I'd be glad to be in the playoffs, but I would be disappointed with a 7, 8, 9 finish.
I don't want to play a play-in game.
Yes.
And realistically, you don't want to have to deal with Seattle or LAFC in the first round. So you really want to push 6 or higher. But again, I wouldn't be crushed with the 7 seed. Don't make me play a play-in game, though.
Yeah, that's definitely like 1A, 1B in terms of suckiness to me. What else for that? Any hot takes about the table this year? Any predictions you want to make that are surprising?
I have. It's more for the West here. And my question to you is, where does Dallas land in all of this with the recent acquisition?
Out of the playoffs. That team's back line is full of holes. It's very porous. It's going to take Lucho time to settle in there. They got rid of a lot of their good talent. Lucho Acosta is an MVP level player in this league when Lionel Messi is not in this league. But I really struggle to see this team starting off fast. I think they're going to fall behind early. By the time they figure it out, it's going to be too late. Maybe they get to the 9th seed, but I don't think they're going to be the worst team necessarily in the West. But the highest I see that team, to me, is 9. Yeah. Where do you see RSL?
I see them right there, the 3 to 7.
Really? So a lot of MLS pundits agree with you. I don't see them there because they shipped out a ton of talent this year. If you haven't had a chance, go take a look at their transfer market, and it's like all outgoings, and it's big names. Like, the only name that's left that you'll probably recognize is like Diego Luna, basically.
I thought they still had Brian White, right?
No, isn't he at Seattle or Vancouver?
Or no, he's Vancouver. You're right. He's Vancouver.
Yeah. I have no idea what to make of Vancouver. They I think, always perform better than expected. But a lot of people have RSL, as far as MLS pundits, have them at like the 5 seed, and I see them solidly out of the playoffs.
RSL, you think, is out of the playoffs?
For sure. Let me ask you this. What 5 teams do you think, or what 6 teams? We now have 15 teams in the West. What 6 teams do you think missed the playoffs in the West? Because I think anything after 3 all the way down to like 10 or 11 is going to be really tight. Like a couple of games difference, I think, is going to separate those.
I'm going to take the easy one, San Jose. I think they're going to be better. I don't think they make the playoffs.
I could see that. I do think they're going to be better. I don't know who's going to be the worst team in the West. I don't think it'll be San Jose. It would not surprise me if San Jose makes a lower end playoff seed.
Sporting Kansas, I don't think makes it this year.
I don't think they make it.
I don't think San Diego makes it. I'm just going to take the under on that. I think they potentially have a decent team. I just don't think. I mean, it's easy to bet against the newcomers, so I'm going to bet against them.
It is.
Although our own club should probably be the forever
Right.
warning sign on that.
Right. So that's
So
two.
there's three: San Diego, San Jose,
Oh, yeah, three.
and
Okay.
Kansas. I agree with you on Dallas. I don't think Dallas is actually going to make it. I just wanted your opinion on them after the Acosta trade. Um, and then after that is where it gets real hairy. Because it could be any one of like 4 or 5 teams in my mind right now.
Yeah, just spitball them, throw them out. Who's in the mix?
If I were to pick two just right now, I think Colorado and I think Houston, both. Will I know those are not going to be what the critics and pundits are saying. One, I just fuck Stan Kroenke.
Yeah.
But two, I think also I hate Houston. To me, Houston is like the one right behind Kansas for me of teams that I hate in the West. Which
Really?
was going to be one of my questions for you: was who is your team after Kansas that you just hate?
In the West?
Yeah.
Ooh. Let me think about that, because there's not. I'm still just so happy to be here.
Yeah.
In MLS,
no,
I don't hate.
I've already got like a bad taste in my mouth for Kansas, and Stuver can take his little rat tail and get the hell out of here.
That's true. That's true. I did hate that rat tail. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. The teams I see missing the playoffs, while my subconscious works on that, Sporting. Okay, I do think they're out. Dallas, I already said. I think Austin misses. I don't think Brandon Vasquez rescues this team. I know they've made some other transfers. I think Driussi is finally gone, but I don't see them as a playoff team. Portland no longer has Evander, and this guy Del Costa that came from Portugal, there's no guarantee that he's the real deal. And I think it'll take time. It may even take a while before he even makes it into the country because of current immigration situations. Vancouver is probably my next one, which is 5. And I agree, San Diego. I don't think I said them. San Diego, I don't see as a playoff team.
I think it's funny because you listed RSL earlier and didn't mention them in your 6.
That are missing. Oh, God, I did forget them. If I were to make one of those changes, I'd probably bump Vancouver up and take RSL out. Because Vancouver was the one I was struggling on the most. And I was like, I felt like there's a team I disliked more than them this year. It was RSL. Good call out.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just here to keep you on your toes. If you've been keeping track of Mizzou basketball, by the way, since we do cover this fun stuff,
kicking ass.
They just beat Alabama, number 4 Alabama tonight. Final just went up 110-98.
If I remember right, they only have 2 losses, right? Both the top 10 teams.
They have
Texas,
like 4 or 5 losses now.
4 or 5 losses. 2 of them were the top 10 teams, though. I remember that.
I think at one point all of our losses were to top 25 teams. Texas is the only one when we lost to them, they were not top 25 when that happened. But I think they may be top 25 now. Anyway.
I'm gonna have to take a look into that. Oh, because they lost to Tennessee. Tennessee was number 6, and then it lost. Mm-hmm. Oh, Texas A&M, who were 7 at the time. Yeah, that was like a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah, we lost to Illinois as well earlier in the year, but we're one of Florida's losses. And Florida's been a top 5 team for a while. We've got multiple top 5 wins, including a number 1 win over Kansas, which is always
that's right.
So, but again, we're gonna
have to talk about them before March Madness, like for sure.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this: 3 questions. Okay, they're kind of related. You could have one person could be the answer for 2 of them, or for all 3 of them, I guess. 1, who leads City in goals scored this year? 2, who leads City in assists this year? And 3, who leads in goal contributions? So basically the combination of them.
I'm going to go toy shirt, Hartle, toy shirt.
Okay. I was going to go toy shirt, Hartle. So we're in agreement on who's going to lead in assists and who's going to lead in goals. 100%. Yeah.
I think toy shirt is going to have more assists than people realize, where I think Hartle's going to have not as many goals because of what we talked about earlier, him being more of a pass first guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Although I will say this, and I know they were really low XG shots and, whatever, but Hartle has done this kind of thing everywhere he's been, right? Where he just scores these ridiculous goals. Some of his, he just scores these unbelievable goals. And it just blows my mind. Like that one against the LA Galaxy last year that he basically just let bounce off his foot. And he clearly redirected it on frame, but still outrageous. Okay. Who do you think finishes with more goals, Betcher or Klaus?
Betcher.
Ooh. It's better for the team if Klaus finishes with more, but I do think it could be Betcher. Who is most likely, not including Thorson out on loan, not including Pedro, because obviously, who is most likely to depart the team in the summer transfer window?
Ooh. Via loan, via transfer, or
let's say transfer, because loans can always be hit or miss. Let's say transfer.
God, that's tough. I think you're more than likely.
I'm going to start writing these down.
I know. You're probably talking about an offensive player because we talked about we have a lot of depth there, but not really sure, right? Where are we going to find the minutes to fit them in? I feel like Ostrak's contract's going to be prohibitive. Otherwise, he would be top of my list because he played so well last year. If he shows up and shows that he's healthy and continues to show that he's healthy, he's going to get a lot of looks. So he would have been my pick just because I think teams would have been willing to pay for him pre-injury. Post-injury makes it a lot tougher. And again, you still got a lot of guys buried. You have so many guys buried on the depth chart, but I don't want to see them go. So who it's up. The other place that I could see, because we have a lot of depth there, is center back, and I still think Hebert's a guy that could end up getting sold, whether we want him to or not, especially to a team in Canada.
The fact that he has not been sold to a team in Canada is still blowing my mind. You and I have predicted that every transfer window.
Guy behind him would be Yarrow.
I think they're going to keep Yarrow. I think they're going to keep Yarrow until he retires. He's extremely inexpensive. He's married to a woman now from St. Louis. He's all about the city now. He's got fantastic leadership capabilities.
Oh,
I think they see.
No, I don't want to see Yarrow, but because you have Yarrow, that makes Hebert even more expendable.
Well, yeah, right, exactly. I think they see Yarrow as a guy who's going to have a role in the team after he retires. Is my thought. So you said Hebert?
Yeah, I think Hebert's the most realistic one. I think if it's an offensive player, the only one that there's two that, I guess technically there's three that I could see them doing, but I don't like any of them. I'll rank them in order of painfulness for me, which is Ostrak, Celio. But
least the most painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, Alm and Celio are pretty close up there because those are two of my favorite players. But it's if I'm looking at offensive players, those are the three that I'd look at. I think Indy is going to get some looks from people with, his play and things. And again, it's just going to depend minutes wise how he does. But I don't think we're going to get rid of Indy because of how versatile he is. And he is. I mean he's the first sub option. for pretty
if
much all of our
Celio
midfield and attacking options.
if Celio comes back and balls out, like I think there could be option like offers, right? Um, Mine is kind of a hot take, and granted, part of the way I see this happening is possibly through a loan, which I just said we probably shouldn't count. But I think when I say this player's name, you're going to say, "Oh yeah, that's not like a developmental loan. That's like a real like we have to get rid of you situation." And I'm going to say Klaus. He's out of contract at the end of this year, although he does have an option year. And if he is not contributing, I could see Lutz trying to move him versus re-sign him. Now, granted, if his off-ball movement, if center backs never learn to just ignore him, and he's pulling people away, and Hartle and Toyshirt are getting these just like free shots on frame, you keep him no matter how many goals or assists he doesn't score. But if his 2025 is reminiscent of 2024, I think you might move him in the summer when you have an opportunity to redeem some of his value. So that's my one. I if Ostrak comes out and has a good year, I could see him being number 2 on that list. He's younger, probably wants to get back to Europe. Yeah. Let's see. You have any hot take questions?
So my big question is, do we get a W versus Seattle this year?
Fuck, I wish. I don't think we do. This is going to be the best Seattle team we've played yet. I know that it's the best City team that's played them yet. I don't. We do play them once in March because that's a game I sold to a friend. So that's before their congestion really heats up, and I think their second game is also pretty early in the year. I think it's in like May when they go to Seattle.
That sounds right. I also don't love how
look that up.
MLS does that with their schedule, because you end up playing the same teams twice in like a 6-week span, and
so much changes right throughout the year. Like the vibe around the team can change, and like the mentality affects how they play. That's probably what you're getting at, but I interjected myself because
it's frustrating, right? Because you want to see how your team stacks up with that team later in the year, or like after changes or after certain things happen. And so by playing them twice in the first 2 months of the season, and maybe not again until the playoffs, if at all, I feel like it robs fans of being able to like better compare and contrast.
Yeah.
And for the team to really make adjustments before they play these teams again. Because if they play, for example, if we play Seattle twice in March and April, or March and May, and they're 2 months apart, or, you play somebody in February and then again in late March, early April, which I think happens, I don't remember who it is. And it's like all of a sudden you're looking at like, okay, that's great, but like we didn't really have time to make adjustments and fix our team. So that team started off hot and was on a hot streak, and we had to play them twice during their hot streak, rather than, and it could go the same way, right? If we start off hot for that team, might be pissed because they had to play us twice during their hot streak. And I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah. We play them March 15th at home, and then we play at Seattle May 3rd. Now, that being said, I'm pulling up right now because they're, I think, in 3. Yeah, they are in Champions Cup because they played Antigua, Guatemala Football Club, or something football club. I know they're from Guatemala today. So, I mean, if they go deep in Champions Cup, they could be having some early fixture congestion that helps with that. I do really hope that if they're going to win a game, I hope they win that March 15th one, because I'll be watching it from the beach. So like that would be fun for me personally. Do you think we get a win against LAFC this year? Well, hold up. Do you think they get a win against Seattle, and then do you think they get a win against LAFC? Because we've drawn LAFC, but we've never beaten them.
I think we get a win against one of them this year.
Pick one.
but I don't know which one. If I had to pick, I think we have a better shot against LAFC because I think we can bottle up Denny Boanga.
Boanga scares me more than any individual player at Seattle. Seattle just plays really well against us.
But as a team, I feel like we would struggle to bottle. Like, again, you can't bottle up a single player on Seattle. And right, if you can stop Boanga, you've got a good chance at stopping LAFC. So by the end of May, by the way, I was trying to look at this. By the end of May, we'll have already played Kansas City twice.
Yep.
Colorado
San Diego.
twice.
Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado, San Diego, Seattle, and KC, all twice by the end of May.
So that's 4 teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically,
and those are just the ones that I got just quick flipping through here.
Right. Yeah. That I did say no for LAFC. It wouldn't surprise me if we get a win against them. They have a ton of games this year. But I'm not convinced yet because LA, we won't low block LA, and you kind of have to low block LAFC. The one time we did low block LAFC, we got beat on that ridiculous not offside goal because the center backs were in the LAFC half, and you can't be offside on your own half of the field, right? And that wasn't the only reason we lost that game. But, like, that was a game I would have seen them trying to low block in, and they didn't do that. And no other time have they tried that because they try to actually compete with LA. That being said, our new guys have come in. They're more comfortable. It wouldn't surprise me if they snuck out a win against both of them. But if I had to choose, I'm going to choose a no for both teams. I could see a draw against either of them. I don't see a win this year.
I think we sneak a win in against one of them. I feel like 1 out of 4 will get a W in there, just playing the numbers game. But I don't know that we do a whole lot more versus them than that. Yeah, this team could come out and be playing, lights out and surprise me and, rack up a couple of them. But
right. Did you pick a specific place in the table that City would finish? Like if you had to pick one spot, not arrange it.
If I had to pick one spot, I'd put them at 5.
That's where I was leaning, was 5 or 6. I put 5, but 6 to me also seems completely reasonable for this team. But I want to be an optimist, so I'm choosing 5. What other hot take predictions do you have?
Of our 3 center backs this year, and this is not going to be you're not going to have a lot of numbers here to be able to support this. But at the end of the season, who do you think our players, our fans, whoever are going to say that was the center back that we couldn't do without this year?
Kessler. You?
It's Kessler for me. But I also wouldn't be surprised if I'm proven wrong.
I mean, yeah, we have 8 of them, right? So, and 4 or 5 of them are reasonably starters.
We have 4 guys that I think could be wow, that guy, without him, we would have been toast, right? The way that we felt about Parker after season 1, right? Season 1, we were like, where would we be without Parker? Who is that guy? And again, Nielsen's a stud, could be him. Horn has proven that he can play, could be him. And again, moving him more central, I think will be good for his game and his development, whereas we've had him out wide previously. And then obviously Timo, who has the pedigree and should be, a solid contributor, solid player. So to me, there's 4 guys that it could be. But to me, Kessler's the low-hanging fruit.
Right. I could see any of those 4 ending up there, but I think Kessler is the front runner for that. Now, if Nielsen stays healthy and plays to the level that we know he has, he is by far the best center back. His peak was by far the best in this. But Timo was second, and Timo fell really far from his peak as well. So I don't know. Which homegrown player will have the most first team minutes this year? So that's going to include all comps. Okay, so Open Cup is included in this. So that means you have Glover, Joyner, Perez, Pierce. Who gets the most first team minutes?
Glover, Joyner, Perez, or Pierce?
Mm-hmm.
God, that's tough. I think it's not the one people think it's going to be. I think it's going to be Joyner. I think he's the one that, and City 2 has shown that he is absolutely like game day. He's going to step up.
I think it's going to be Joyner as well. I think he's the one that's most likely to get a spot appearance with the first team this year. Perez is going to require injuries before he can get an appearance. Pierce, I don't see him getting a lot of minutes at right back or right wing back. Glover is too far away. Basically, the only ones I could see getting any MLS minutes are Joyner or Perez, and I think Joyner probably has a better chance than Perez at getting MLS minutes.
I think Perez also is easy for us to say no because we saw how he was used in the preseason.
Yeah,
or
that's
wasn't.
True. That's true. Well, and I think Joyner had probably a pretty similar usage, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, if Perez goes out to City 2 and balls out early, and Durkin and JGR are struggling to come back, and Watts has a bad game or two, not one, a couple bad games, I mean, Perez could easily sneak right into that spot. I just find it more likely that they move Vollum over.
Yeah. I do have one for you.
Okay.
But I was trying to figure out, I'll give you an over-under, but first I want to see if you can name the player. Player had 6 goals season 1, 5 goals last year.
Leuven.
Mm-hmm. All right, so over under 5.5 goals on the season. Just in MLS, not including U.S. Open Cup.
I'm taking over.
Taking the over?
Yeah. Do you know why?
I'm intrigued. Let's hear it.
Because Betcher and Celio are going to get him so many penalties. You didn't say from open play, and he hasn't scored a lot of open play from us. He scored a lot of penalties. But like both of those guys will run at people with the ball and let them just like I don't think they flop, but I think they earn.
If they get hit, they're going to go down.
Yeah. Well, sometimes Celio played through some. Remember, we got that
fight through it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Betcher will go down. Like I think he'll earn a good foul, but he'll make sure that he goes down for it too.
He might embellish it a little.
Yeah. Okay, so over under 5.5 Leuven goals. Okay. What do you say?
You're going to hate me for this, but I'm going under because I think he's going to get like 4 PKs, and then I think he gets like 1 goal out of open play somewhere. But I think he's going to play more defensively in the new system. I think he's going to get held back a little bit more. Now, I would love to be proven wrong here, but I see him getting that like 4 or 5. I see 5 goals is kind of where he's going to land. And then I see with the new way they've been playing, whoever's playing next to him will combine for another 5-ish, 4 to 5 goals.
Yeah. And you said MLS only?
MLS only. Yeah, okay. If you include Open Cup, that's different animal.
I mean, yeah, if they go deep in Open Cup, yeah, it's an extra 5 or 6 games that he could. I mean, he'll only be in the last few if we win, but okay.
Well, I don't know. Okay. He showed up against Union Omaha season 1.
That's true. I don't think they're going to let him get away with that. And we have like a lot more young guys now that they actually like are developing now. Okay. What about this? Do any City players finish MLS top 11?
Toy shirt.
Okay, so you are picking one and you are picking Toy Shirt to be MLS top 11. Okay,
Not only am I picking one, I'm giving you the player.
I see that.
My next two in order, if they were going to make it, is going to be Kessler, or is going to be Berkey and then Kessler.
Yeah, I think Hartle has too many really high level players at his position. I could see Leuven being on the cusp, right? If Leuven gets a lot of assists, and remember, MLS does assists at 2, right? They do hockey assists. I could see him.
Do they?
I could see.
I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah. So they do hockey assists in MLS. So I could see Leuven, getting a good pass to Hartle, who lays it off to Betcher, or things like that happening a lot. I'm going to say Berkey. I think he's going to go back to it, and that leads me to my next question: is will any players finish with one of the individual awards in MLS? And I'm going to say Berkey wins goalkeeper of the year.
Yeah, if anybody wins for us, it'll be him, and it'll be for that award.
Do you think he will?
I think, in my mind, he would have to be he's the favorite. And other people can say what they want, but I think he's the favorite for this year.
I think he is. We'll do it that way. We'll say is favored. That's how I'll word this when I make this graphic. Berkey is favored.
Here's a fun one. And
okay.
Does Berkey sign an extension before the end of the season?
Yes.
If he doesn't, I'm calling Taylor Twellman.
I mean, I know that was hilarious. Now, that being said, Berkey may not want to, right? He may have other, maybe he wants to go live somewhere warmer or whatever, right? I think re-signing Berkey is going to be high priority for Lutz. I think he is a player that, if you're okay, so you've been paying him roughly $1.7 million the last few years, and if he says, oh no, I want to make a little bit more money to stay, $2 million, 2.1, okay, you pay that. It's a relatively small thing in the budget. It doesn't hit the cap because of how you were already paying him. So I think they do. Now, this is a hot take. This is not one of these predictions, okay, that we have, because it's a conditional prediction that I have, okay? It was your answer yes to that, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they resign.
If Berkey does not re-sign, okay, Berkey does not re-sign.
I'm about to end this right now, but continue.
They make a cash for player trade for Pat Schulte.
They better.
Now,
whether
right?
Columbus is willing to part.
Well, I think Columbus knows they're going to get some offers because they just signed him to an extension, which gives them tons of leverage. He was out of contract this year too. That is my hope. If Berkey does not re-sign,
if we have to lose Berkey, please bring in the St. Louis legend Schulte.
Yeah,
please. He of St. Louis FC
and Slew.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. But I mean,
legend.
He's legend. He went to high school in the area too. I mean, hometown kid.
Yeah. He's from St. Charles, I think.
Yeah, St. Charles area. I just don't know which school. There's so many of those schools.
That's the St. Louis question. Which high school did he go to? I'll let you look that up. Damn, we've been talking 90 minutes. I want to get... How do you feel about 13 as a lucky number?
All right. What is it?
Well, we've done 12 predictions. So do we stop? Do we avoid 13? Do we do an extra one to hit 13?
He went to Francis Howell High School, by the way.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Let's do 13. Let's make 13 and go for it all here. So,
I bet I know the question. Go
Feel
ahead. No,
free, but it's fine. So we've
I'm
listed
going to type it
several
out.
players. We have several players that we think are going to be more role style players.
Okay.
We've got Ostrak, Alm, Celio, and I mean, really, you could throw Indy kind of in there, but I'm going to leave Indy out because really we've been talking a lot about Ostrak, Alm, and Celio kind of being those three borderline guys. I think once Toy Shirt's healthy, then Indy falls into that realm as well. So if you want to throw Indy in, if you want a fourth, do you want a fourth or no? Before I ask the question,
Ostrak, Celio, or Indy.
you can take
Okay.
four.
I'm just saying those are the four you've said. Ask your question.
Who is the points leader and who is the minutes leader of that group?
Indy is the minutes leader.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
I think Celio is the points leader. Alm and Indy and Ostrak do a lot of things really, really well, but the things they do really, really well are not directly involved with goals. They do a lot of other things that make our system function incredibly well. Celio, on the other hand, is much more dangerous in the final third than either of those other three are. So
I also had obviously Celio as
for
my points leader,
yeah,
but Indy for minutes. I think it'll be interesting to see exactly how it plays out with that. I think if you want I think it's going to be real close between Indy and Alm for that second spot on the points.
sure.
But I think Ostrak kind of lags behind the other three in points.
While we're talking about Ostrak, I will say, so we were seeing some really, really good things out of him before he got hurt last year. So far in preseason, he and Celio look like they never left. I will say, for what Ostrak gets paid, I really think you have to see a big improvement from him to re-sign him. I think his contract ends this year. He could be another option that leaves this year because he is a TAM player, which means that he takes up a very valuable spot in terms of our roster resource allocation. So just a thing I wanted to mention while we were talking about him.
No, I think that's a valid point. It's something to consider. And again, I was thinking about that when we were talking earlier about who I thought was going to leave, which is kind of why offensively I kind of had him at the top, but really just about depends on how well he's playing. All right. Who is this looking at the season, these first few games, how do you feel like they are going to go? Do you see us winning a couple, losing a couple? Let's see. We'll go through first 5 games. Look at the first 5 so we can have an odd number here. So we go at home against Colorado, to San Diego, to Galaxy, at home against Seattle, to Philly.
I think they're going to go 3-1-1.
3-1-1.
Yeah. That's what I hope they do, at least. I think they can beat San Diego, provided they don't let San Diego punch them in the mouth. Colorado's a team that normally gives us fits, but they just played a god-awful ice game last night. And they have a second leg against LAFC next week. So I'm hoping home field advantage for us compared to those things for them. We sneak out a W there. So that's 2 wins right there. I am thinking that we were playing a weekend LA. And so I kind of see that as a draw game, though. We could beat them because they're going to be without Paintsel and Pooj. But I kind of see that as the draw game. I've already said that I am not confident that we'll beat the Sounders. And then I think Philadelphia is a much weaker team this year. And all the players know how Carnell likes to play. So I think that that's the other one. So basically, I've got a win against everyone except the draw against the LA Galaxy and a loss to Seattle.
I was going 3-2, and I had the same wins, but I had us losing both to Galaxy and Seattle, and then hoping that we pick up the W against Galaxy at home later in the year.
I mean, we still need to have a 4-4 draw against the Galaxy. That was what the pattern was supposed to be when we beat them. So, you want me to record that one?
Yeah, if you want to put that one down, feel free.
Yeah. Let me add it real quick.
Most importantly, though, we are opening the season this Saturday against the one and only Stan Kroenke-led Colorado Rapids, and nobody cares about that team. Obviously, they have a couple of decent players, and I'll never forget the year one when we went to Colorado, and God, Berkey stole us a point in that game, and then at one point we were actually leading in that late in that game, and they gave up a late goal. But the only reason we were in that game was because of Berkey. So kudos to him. Hopefully the shock of coming from California back to Missouri is not too much for our guys' systems, and they're ready to play on Saturday. But I have no doubt that the Icelandic, it's not really Icelandic, but
the Norwegian,
the Nordic.
Yeah, we were both
the
wrong.
Nordic man of Olaf will have the team ready to go and have some things up his sleeves to get them ready, hopefully. But with that, let's hope we beat Colorado this weekend. And with that, Stan Kroenke, we hate you. Good night, everybody.